I love the idea that the Ernest Manning Awards has the motto, the imagination to innovate and the stamina to succeed. Both of those things are very important when you're creating a business. And I'd love to illustrate this by telling you the story of OneStory. My part of it begins years ago. Like every single other human, I love stories. And I actually got my degree here at the University of Saskatchewan in history. It was a study of stories, historical stories. From there, I went into nonprofit, and I worked specifically in adult literacy, adults who were having difficulty with learning to read and write. And you could talk numbers all you wanted about the numbers of people who were impacted by issues of literacy, but the moment that you had someone tell their story, we had one woman who, she was suicidal, she'd lost everything. She had her children taken away from her. And then she learned to read and write. And all of a sudden, she owned a business with 2 employees. Her kids were back in her home. She was happy and healthy. And that power of that story is something that made people in government, the public, start to really understand the basis of that issue. So stories have always been very, very important to me. After my time in nonprofit, I also started a company. It was capturing senior stories to video. And it was a great, great project, wonderful for the seniors to share their stories, wonderful for me to hear them, wonderful for the families to get video biographies. However, there was a couple of problems with this. Number one, it was very expensive. To create and share a video, it's a very costly experience, so you'd give a big fat bill at the end of that process. And the second part was there were so many incredible stories that I was hearing, and I thought, there's so many people who aren't getting these stories captured. These powerful stories from seniors, from just people who've lived through extraordinary circumstances. So I went on for a little while into social media strategy and was able to also see the true power of online and how many people you could reach in one day on Twitter with an idea or message, and the power of that particular forum. And started to really see some of the neat things you could do in social media when sharing an idea. And it was right around that time when I met my business partner, Dale Zach. Now, Dale Zach is also an alumni of the University of Saskatchewan Computer Science, and he's an absolute rock star developer in the international development space. He's also a social entrepreneur that is passionate about using technology for social change. So Dale and I met, and he said, you know, Katrina, we're both busy, but let's create a little side project, this teeny tiny something on the side. I'll build it, you share it. So we went for lunch one day, and we were just discussing different ideas, and he said, you know, I'm thinking about creating an app to capture senior stories. An app? That is so perfect. That's something that reaches a lot of people. It's something that automates this process, and it's inexpensive. And it doesn't have to be me capturing these stories. Anybody, anywhere can capture these stories. So the idea evolved into the idea that not just around senior stories, but that everybody has a story. Every single person in this room has something that someone else can learn from, or they can hear that story and learn something for themselves. So the idea that everybody has a story was very powerful. Then we wanted to add something that was a little bit extra onto this piece. Where we're like, there are organizations around the world who could use these stories to be furthering their message of their organization, of their cause. So how do we do this in a way that we can really, truly reach a worldwide group in using stories to create change in the world? And that's when OneStory was invented. So OneStory is the ability to ask a question and get video responses in return. So people can respond through an app, through a webcam. It takes those individual video clips and automatically stitches them together into a little mini documentary that's branded with the logo of the organization asking the question, and it happens automatically, or automagically, and our system takes care of it. So the beauty of this is that it makes it very, very easy to capture stories from a crowd. So you can ask for questions and get people to respond from around North America very easily, and all the videos are kept in one place for easy sharing. Plus, you get the power of that story. But it didn't just begin there. we had to begin somewhere. So in January 2013, we both went full-time on this project. And we were building and developing and marketing, and we had one little problem. We had no clients or no money. So with this passion and this idea, I hit the road, and I took my car through 3 provinces and 7 states. I slept in my car, I showered in McDonald's, and I slept in people's couches and all these different places to make it happen. And it paid off. I connected with as many people as I could to tell them about what we were up to. Right around this time, the city of Calgary had undergone their floods that had shut down the downtown of Calgary. After that emergency was over, it took a long time for those recovery things to take effect. And there was businesses that had lost 2 months worth of revenue, which when you're a small business, you know is a pretty big deal. So the city of Calgary and several partners had put together an entire campaign called YYC is Open. The idea being, now that the emergency is passed, the way that you can support us now is by supporting our small businesses. So we were fortunate enough to partner with the YYC is Open campaign. And so we just jumped right in with one of the most powerful cities in North America to see if our technology worked. So we asked 3 questions. The first was, tell us about your experience with the floods, to get that rich story that came out of that. The second was, tell us about your reopening. And the third question was, where can people find you now? So the small businesses created their videos. They were all branded with the YYC is Open logo, opening them up. The videos were free. They were put through social media. Then we had the collection of videos. And when we launched that to Twitter, we hit 1.2 million people through impressions on Twitter in one day with the message that the city of Calgary is open for business. So that was a very cool first client. Since then, we've been fortunate to work with many, many local organizations around Saskatchewan. We're also working with the group United Nations Women, which is quite cool. I actually got to travel down and meet with them, not in the building behind the flags, but just off of there, and tell them about our product. And they got very excited. And right now they're using us in Albania to capture stories of average men to famous men standing up for women's rights. So they are not only getting the social media buzz as these videos are collected, but they're also getting that video content, which can be downloaded, and they're creating a compilation video with English subtitles to be like, hey world, Albania cares about women's rights. So from a seed of an idea in Saskatchewan to being in 19 different countries and having people use us in all sorts of different groups, all of these things took stamina. There were a lot of times when you have ups and downs, and I would absolutely agree with the lessons learned that were placed up by the former presenter. We have learned a lot about story, about business, and we couldn't have done any of it without a lot of support, both here in Saskatchewan through the small business community, as well as grants, government support nationally. And we've done some very exciting things. But the idea being, we started off with one little idea right here in Saskatchewan. We took it, we made it, and then we took it to that next level, and hopefully keeping the stamina. They say that 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first 3 years. We're at 2.5 years, so just cross your fingers for us. But we're going to change the world one story at a time. So I'd like to ask you, what's your passion? And I would love to hear your story in a couple of years. Thank you.